Absolutely fantastic show up there from the man himself, Mr. Freddie Mercury. A very good evening and welcome to the show. My name is Paul and I have with me sat in...
My name's Andy.
Hello, pal. Here we are then. Tuesday, the 28th of May 2013. And we have a guest this week. So, all good news. Right, we're not going to go through the week. We never do that, do we? No. I mean, we can talk about what happened in Woolwich last week. Will we learn anything by talking about it?
I don't think
so. No. What did you see? I saw a guy laid on the road, a crazy guy being filmed by somebody who wasn't in the slightest bit frightened of him, the fact that he had a meat cleaver in his hands and blood all over him, and I saw a whole crowd of people behind him waiting for a number 36 bus. None of it made real sense at all, to be honest with you. I know you haven't really seen much of it.
I only heard it on the radio, that's all I heard.
So, Mr. Mercury then, the great pretender himself. But aren't we all pretending? Aren't we all pretending? Aren't we moving into a real world of dreams and pretend? Mm-hmm. Haven't we always been encouraged to live in a dream world? Haven't we? I mean, isn't it one of those popular names of songs?
Your hopes and dreams may come true.
But that's where we're going, isn't it? That is where we're going, there's no doubt about it, is that we're actually being shuffled along to prefer dreamland. Mm-hmm. Now, you do prefer dreamland when you're a kid, don't you?
Yes.
And you can do anything you want in your dreams, because I remember when I was little, I used to go to bed and I used to think, I'm going to dream about the girl over the road. And I was about 9 or 10. Right, I was about 9 or 10, and without giving too much away, and there was Susan. Right, and I was about 9 or 10, and she was a year or two older than me. And I thought she was absolutely gorgeous. And, do you know, I used to purposely say, I'm going to dream about her being my girlfriend again. And I did, and night after night after night. And eventually, I've forgotten exactly how, I asked her to be my girlfriend. And I remember we walked around the village we lived holding hands. That was right down the block, holding hands all the way through, right? And then we had our first little kiss. And you know what? My dreams were shattered because she had awful breath. I don't know what she'd been eating. It shows you how shallow you are when you're young, doesn't it? I thought, oh, that was awful, that. So that was it, never saw her again.
No. A swift end.
A swift end indeed. We diversify. But distraction is what we're up to, isn't it? That's what, the mobile phones are doing a great job now, aren't they? I mean, it doesn't matter what age group you're in. Us guys, technology's not for us. I mean, we've been messing about. I mean, we were on the edge of our seats trying to get this set up tonight, weren't we?
Yeah.
One of the computers has taken all the updates, now it won't work like it should.
I don't put my hand up, it was my fault. But sorry.
Isn't that the way of things? I mean, that computer there has been a love. I mean, it has nothing else on it. It's got the music that we use for the show and the player. Mm-hmm. And now it's taken online, it's updated itself, and neither bloody work properly.
No.
And we found out at 10 to 9 this evening. What a bloody nightmare this has been.
It was a bit scary.
So it's all actually going according to plan, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose
it's actually going very well, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Now, back to the Great Pretenders, because that's what everyone's doing, isn't it? The hope and change thing's getting a little bit worn out now, isn't it? Mm. Because people are hoping that things are going to change. And that's what they sell us every election. And it's never worked yet, has it? Never once yet.
No.
Now, I have a stage better than most people. If you don't know, I have a fish and chip shop in North Yorkshire, and I have a captive audience for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. And I cannot resist trying to break into reality for them. Now, some people say you don't have a right to do that, and I'll put my hand up and say, no, I don't actually. I actually don't think I have the right to break into their reality. But I do give it a go, but I try and do it in a funny way, so as I'm trying not to upset him. And over the years I've been doing this, it does appear to be true. This is the following, it's true. There are people who don't want to know. Mm-hmm. And there's people who don't know that they don't want to know. And then there's people who do want to know, but don't know where to find it. Mm-hmm. But as you go up that scale, I would say 70+% couldn't care less.
No, I must admit,
for various reasons.
I've stood in the queue and listened to you, and
Now, there is something else, though, that's pestering me. And that is that, over the last months in particular, it has become absolutely obvious to me that in the films and in the songs, they are shouting out loud about how this system works. So why don't we hear it, you say? Well, ask yourself that question. Why didn't you hear it? And if you do now, congratulations. But am I right in saying that you and I, we can watch a film or listen to some music now, We hear the words. We don't see the story. We hear the words, and isn't that a difference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
You actually hear the words and you admire the scripting. The story can be absolutely nonsensical. Fahrenheit 451 is a fine film, but it looks like a kid's film, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a poor production, put it that way.
But it's meant to be that way because the actual film itself, if that's all you watch, you'll say that was rubbish.
Yeah.
But the words, when you hear the words, then you have. I think they're laughing at us.
Definitely.
I think there's a large portion of society just above where we are now laughing at us.
Where do they get the funding for the films? Where does that come from? It comes from investors, doesn't it? They have to get people to invest in the film. We never know where that money comes from, and we're never likely to know where that money comes from.
Well, the one thing we do know is that we pay for it. We actually pay for it all in the end. They actually speculate with making the films.
Yes,
but we always return it.
We will. It's down to us whether it's a hit or a miss,
because it's sent for our approval. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
it is sent for our approval.
Your approval, yeah.
Now, we were talking earlier today about pre-programming, weren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And we all, to a point, understand that the films can tell us a little bit of what the future may or may not look like. And it's the bit that we approve of that they actually take as being, this is going to work probably more than that isn't going to work, that sort of thing. But how far back does pre-programming go?
Well, yeah.
Because we use it in films now, but did it happen on the radio? Well, of course it did.
Yeah.
And then did it happen in books?
The Second World War proved that it was fueled by radio. Well, First World War, really.
But did it happen in books? Well, of course it has.
Yeah.
So you go back a little further. Did it happen in theatre? Well, of course it did.
Mm-hmm.
And then local plays?
Yeah.
Of course it did. And then you go right back to the church.
Yeah, the first place where
they altar and pulpit. Because you're going to get a version that they're happy with.
Yeah.
So pre-programming isn't new. So what I'm trying to say is that they've known this way of programming this for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
And we've just discovered it.
Mm-hmm. Don't make sense, that, does it? We've just discovered it.
Well, it doesn't, does it really?
Not really.
Interesting. Now we have a guest. Now, Mr. Alan Abbadessa Green. A gentleman we spoke to before about 7 months ago. The Sync book is what we brought, isn't it? We brought that to us.
Mm-hmm, he did.
We haven't read through it, actually. I must admit, I'm guilty of not reading the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
But he has been kind enough to join us this evening. And it is a very good evening to Alan Abbadessa Green. Hello, Alan. Welcome back to the show. We spoke around about 7 months ago. Tell us, what have you been up to?
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful to be back with you. And it's been a busy few months, a very busy few months. I think when I last spoke to you, I was putting up the finishing touches on Sync Book Volume 2. It's a follow-up to a book that we released in 2011. That was the first volume of the Sync book, which is 26 authors on synchronicity. The second volume takes the same basic concept, but opens it up a little bit wider, and it's 26 completely new authors, and gets, I just feel like it casts the net a little wider. It gets some voices in there that have completely different takes, completely different perspectives on what this phenomenon means. Some people are coming at this from a very love and light perspective of this is this beautiful Gaian matrix, and some people are coming at it from this very dark perspective of this is this horrible, matrix, like some sort of Gnostic matrix. So trying to find those extremes and all the in-betweens and trying to consider all the different options, it's just been, for the last few years, the work I've really focused on is trying to find out how many different people can get their perspectives on synchronicity, and how do we weigh all those different options. And this is really because synchronicity is so personal. When we have a synchronicity, when we have these meaningful coincidences, it's really hard very often to express it to someone else. Why is this significant? Because it's your own personal context, your set and setting that made that coincidence so stunning. So when you are able to kind of dive into other people's synchronicities, or sometimes use movies as almost like a shared dream. or a shared synchronicity in a media event, when we're able to analyze something where we all have a common context, these are all just attempts to study synchronicity from as many different perspectives as possible and try and find some common ground and etc. So doing the Sync Book Volume 2 was basically what kicked my butt at the end of 2012, made sure we got that book out on time. We did put it out in November of 2012. And then since then, I've been working with a few other authors to get their books ready. We have a book on the Gospel of Thomas. This is a Gnostic book with infused with Indian yogic tradition. Working with Frater X on his book, The Secret War Inside Freemasonry. And my own book, Suicide Kings, which analyzes different archetypes and how they're expressed from the JFK assassination, 9/11, and the quote-unquote death of Osama bin Laden, not really focusing on the literal truth of how these events played out. This is not a detective story. This is not trying to find out who killed JFK or who took the towers down. This is trying to show what is the sacred narrative that's being expressed in all these events, regardless of who did what. I want to make this very clear. I am not. When we talk about conspiracies and then the word coincidence gets put in, people sometimes get their backs up. It's like, if you're saying that's a coincidence, you're saying the whole thing is a coincidence. No, this is not mutually exclusive. There are people who did some horrible things. That is true. And these archetypes are being expressed through their actions. That is also true. It is not an either or, but it is both. We
absolutely love it when we just dive in, don't we?
Yep.
I've got Andy sat with me. I don't know if you remember, Andy was here last time, but we love it
Absolutely.
when we just dive on in there. There's no need to skirt around it. I mean, synchronicity, I think, looking through, I don't have the second, but I do have the first, and looking through it, synchronicity is a very personal thing, isn't it? It is completely unique, and the one thing that it does show to me and confirm to me is the system would like to make us all copies of each other. But that book says that we're nothing like that. We actually all receive this information and decode it in our own unique ways. But one thing that can be confirmed for me is that there is a template that we're following, and we always seem to follow this template from the bottom to the top of the whole pyramid, should you want to call it that. And this template, it updates as it goes. It improves as it goes. It becomes more sophisticated as it moves along. But it's the same and different all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. I mean, what we're really seeing, when we get to all compare and talk about what we've experienced, what has come up in our lives, there is definitely this commonality. This is, again, when I say it's not either or. Like, people get really worked up over individuality versus collectivism.
Yep.
I'm very much into individuality, but we have to understand, what does that mean? We're coming from a common source. So when someone says we're all one, well, yes, that is absolutely true. When someone says we're all individuals, yes, that is absolutely true. How do we reconcile those two truths? Well, we're coming from a common source, right? There is some sort of collective thing that binds us all together, and yet the way in which we interpret that, the way in which we act upon that, all the things we do to make our lives unique, that yes, we are absolutely individuals and we should celebrate that.
Well, I actually look at the word individual. Andy and I, we've actually taught ourselves through just observation, and to us it's obvious. Mm-hmm. To many people it's oblivious. And the only difference between the words obvious and oblivious is two spells called L-I. You can either see the lie or you can't. But we've done a language decode that appears to be fairly comprehensive. And when we look at the word individual, it doesn't insinuate one. It actually shows one split into two, doesn't it?
Yeah, precisely. So think about the implications of that.
Yep.
It shows that there is a common source. We are all starting from one. You can almost like envision it like a big bang of consciousness, right? We're all sort of starting as one thing,
yep.
And then we split off and become our own little pieces of individuality. We carve out our little corners of reality, our own little reality tunnels, as Robert Anton Wilson might have said. So this is absolutely true, and I think the implications of doing things like what you guys do with decoding language, and I touch on stuff like that as well, and sometimes they're like silly puns, but sometimes the truth that you find in there is utterly profound.
Well, we actually speak words, but we're taught to decode them differently. I mean, we have, in this country, our number for help to dial is 999, and I think for you guys it's 911. But that is the number that we dial for emergency. Now, listen to what you're saying. Emergency. You see, the words are in there. You just have to decode them back out again. The level above us that designed this language as a control method, which works brilliantly, by the way, they know this second decode, but we don't hear it. We don't have eyes to see and ears to hear in the way that they do. This is all held together by a process of what you see and what it means. And they decode it for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. And what holds this whole shebang together is cement. You see, and when I say it slowly, people pick up the decodes, because the cement is what holds us together. Now, if you say, that's not what I see and that's not what it means, it all falls to pieces.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning what you can do with some of this stuff. And I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman by the name of Steve Wilner. He's actually in the first volume of the Sync book. But he does similar stuff. And he had a podcast called Cracks in the Wall, which I highly recommend to the both of you and all your listeners. There was only like 6 or 7 episodes that they ever recorded. But it's just sort of rapid-fire language decoding. And he does that in his chapter for the first volume of the Sync book. He does that, and it's pretty stunning what you're able to do when you just start breaking the words down. Like you saying cement, right? So this is the word for mind. So when you say like government, it means to control the mind. Government is literally mind control.
But here in the UK, what we use to build houses, the actual mortar that we use to build houses, here in the UK we call it cement.
Yeah.
But yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think you recommended this to us last time, and for some reason we didn't pick it up. But the word decode does work very well, and it is quite entertaining. And it does seem to be that that's what we found ourselves. That's allowed us to see depth for the first time in a long, because depth is what people can't perceive. They think they're walking along a regular pier, and we've got piers at our seaside towns, and I suspect you've got. I know you have got them in America, but a pier is really quite a clever thing, because you appear to be on the level walking out to sea, but actually you're getting in deeper and deeper and deeper. But it doesn't appear that way, and we've got to make people build a pier in their heads and be happy to walk into the depths. That's what we try and play with the words like. This system wants us all to be copies. It tries to make us all copies, and it gets us into formation, so we all think the same, look the same, want the same, talk the same, and act the same.
It's interesting because my research definitely shows that there is a cycle. We can say that there are a sort of the word you use, template. When we look at nature, we can see, like, say, the Fibonacci sequence being expressed in plants and lightning bolts and in all sorts of ways. In the human body and animal bodies, we see this same proportion playing out in nature. But we don't really consider that a conspiracy, or this is not something that we assume someone is controlling. This is just a sort of fingerprint or blueprint that reality works upon. Well, in much the same way, when we deal with things like archetypes, that could be something you look at like Kabbalah or Tarot, these older esoteric systems that have a huge amount of information in them because they... Sorry, got a phone call here. The huge amount of information in them because these are people who've been studying this stuff just the same way it took us how many years of studying nature, and then we said, oh, look, there's this pattern here. Mm-hmm. Now, this pattern shows up in our lives, and I would almost argue in the structure of time. This is how events play out. There is this template. What I think the real question for most of us right now has to be, if we can show there is a sort of template, a pattern, that there is this commonality, is it our goal to try and forge out as much of an individual or original variation on that as possible? Or you have some people who are saying, You sort of go with the flow. If there's a natural flow of reality, you sort of go with that. And there are days where I can see the value of either of those arguments. No one wants to be, I think, a hive mind or clones of each other. But I do, at times, I do understand the idea of you don't necessarily fight nature if there's something. There is and again, let's make a very clear distinction between go with the flow. If the go with the flow means current events and what marketing companies and politicians want you to do, that is not a natural flow. That is not something that I think you should just sign up for and smile and nod with everything you see on the television. But if we can find this sort of natural, almost heartbeat of the universe, do we try and synchronize ourselves with that? And there are days where that seems incredibly valid and important thing to do, and yet there are days when it seems incredibly important, sometimes almost essential, to break out of that mold and see what you can do for yourself. This is why one of the most important archetypes I discuss is the mythology of Osiris. Osiris is essentially an Egyptian variation on Saturn or Kronos. He's a god of agriculture and time and death, all these things. But what happens is that he is cut up into 14 pieces by his brother. And when we consider this idea of chopping up time, we can even look at, say, the tarot cards, right? If this is a collection of archetypes, but why is it not presented to you as a book in linear form? You're not starting at page 1 and ending at page 78.
Well, the first
you're cutting it up and rearranging those pieces to make something unique that every time you rearrange it. So it's like almost like you have – there's only so many elements you can use to create in this world, but every different variation on how you arrange those things, you might end up with a horse, you might end up with a human, you might end up with a skyscraper, you might end up with an atomic bomb, you might end up with a dragonfly.
Right. Now,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you've definitely got me to the part of the conversation that I wanted to get involved in, so here I am. First of all, the tarot cards, the first 21 major arcana, they can be very simply looked upon as the waking up process, in my opinion. Those 21 cards, the road that you go through, the death that you have to actually undergo, which is your own death. It's actually you that dies, and it's your own wake that you're going to. And it's only after the you that was has died can you make the you that is now going to be. And definitely those first 21 tarot cards do actually show that story, amongst many others. But when you talk about Osiris, it's only an analogy, isn't it? It's an analogy, it's a story to share with people to show how the control system works.
Yeah, and, again, you say the control system. I think this is true on multiple levels. Yep. This is something I stress, is it's not like this is true in this way, that it is a control system.
This is what
it's
we
not
do,
just
yes.
true that
this
it is
exactly what we do. Yeah. It's right on all levels. It depends on which floor you're on.
Right, exactly. But all those floors have a time and a place to understand them. So I try and discuss the whole building rather than individual floors, but your point is very well taken. I just feel like if we're going to talk about a specific floor in that building, maybe there's a different way to approach each of those. If we say control system, here's something I think about very often. When we talk about chopping up Osiris and yes, this is definitely a metaphor. Of course it is. But when we talk chopping him up and rearranging him, remembering him, this idea of remember who you are.
Yeah,
right? I feel like this is a hugely important metaphor. And at the same time, I look at things, every now and then I see a sort of dark manifestation of this. Say like Monsanto, right? This genetically modified food. Well, what is the largest? I mean, there's probably soy and corn are the two largest crops that we have that are genetically modified, and they're constantly screwing with them. Well, Osiris is the lord of grain. He's literally, they say that the grain grew out of his body. So when you see corn, this is almost like the body of Osiris. So when you have Monsanto cutting up Osiris, this corn, the genetics within the corn, rearranging them and making it incredibly toxic, we see that there are bad ways to do this. We see that this is not, always just an aspect of individuality and this great act of creation. Sometimes you can make horrible things. So yes, you can make control systems. You can make systems that help free people and enlighten people. You can make just about anything.
That's a brilliant one, actually, the Monsanto. That's right down to the smallest macros, the smallest micros, the biggest macro there, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is one end of the scale to the other. I mean, back to the buildings and the floors. We do call each floor of a building, we actually call it a story, don't we?
Yes,
we
absolutely.
We actually call it a story. And I think a building is called a building because it's in our nature to be builders. We actually do want to build. I mean, we've maybe forgotten that in big numbers now, but where I am in my life and on my journey, I actually do want to build people up. I actually want to encourage them to be bigger than they were and to be more than they were. And that's how it feels now. You don't want to... the last thing I want is people looking to me for the answers. I want people sitting next to me trying to find them with me. And it is a very exciting time to live. I mean, I'm not really negative in the way that most people are. And I do understand that opposites don't attract, they oppose. They actually are designed to oppose. It is the eternal fight, light and dark, good and bad, day and night, that sort of thing. And this is the symbiosis of what's always existed inside us, internally and externally in everybody else. And we have to learn that that's the way that it is. And for us to say we can change it by just demanding it changes is a little silly. The only thing we can change is ourselves and who we attract.
Sure. I mean, I wonder about that. Like this idea of, is it, when you say do opposites attract or do opposites oppose? I mean, it's almost sort of like both.
Yeah, both.
Right.
Yeah.
It's if you can imagine a motor in a car, the way that motor operates is a series of opposing magnets, right, that allows it to spin. Things like that, where there's almost the way if you can imagine in your mind the yin-yang symbol, these spinning opposites, and they're kind of blending together and constantly switching place.
Correct.
So in this sense that it's almost like the opposites are always attracting and chasing each other and at the same time repulsing each other, and this is kind of what keeps our story going. You can, this is the Ouroboros or the snake eating its tail. It kind of keeps that cycle spinning. Now, when we talk about opposites, we can talk about this idea of a duality where we're understanding black or white, light or dark. It's not so easy then to talk about transcending that dualistic perspective and trying to see both sides of the coin at the same time. I'm going to give you just a quick example, a few quick examples from the book I'm working on, is like things like... we can go to Abraham Lincoln, right? Abraham Lincoln's assassination. He's killed, at least theoretically, all these things are theoretically, killed by John Wilkes Booth. Now you have that John Wilkes Booth's brother actually saved Abraham Lincoln's son about 3 months beforehand. So you have one Booth saving a Lincoln and one Booth killing a Lincoln. We can go to Martin Luther King's assassination, right? Where Martin Luther King is, again, at least theoretically, killed by James Earl Ray. What does the word Ray mean? It means king. So you have Martin Luther King being killed by a king. Black and white. This is the opposites. This is, almost like a chessboard. You have the two kings, but you start to wonder, is there a way to even separate them? Are they not two sides of the same coin? I'll go one step further, is you have, with this Osama bin Laden, again, when they said that they killed him and dumped his body in the ocean, on the floor where we discuss actual physical 3D events, I don't believe that really happened. When we discuss maybe 6 floors up where we're talking in metaphors, it's really profound. Osama bin Laden, Barack Obama, the night before, there was this whole controversy over his birth certificate, and he shows a video at this like press correspondence dinner to be like funny. It's not really that funny. He's a mass murderer. I don't find him all that funny. At the same time, he shows this video as a joke, saying, not only am I going to release my birth certificate, but I'm going to show you a video of my live birth. And he shows a clip from Disney's Lion King. So he's basically saying, I am the Lion King. The next day, he gets on TV and tells everyone that he just killed Osama bin Laden. Osama, in Japanese, means king, and in Arabic means lion. So basically, you have Barack Obama saying, I am the Lion King, I just killed the Lion King. James Earl Ray, the white king, killing Martin Luther King, the black king. One Booth saving a Lincoln, one Booth killing a Lincoln. This sort of constant interaction and overlapping of their opposites seems to play out in every world event, and in almost in no this is why 9/11 has been such a huge event that you can constantly point to for all sorts of reasons, from conspiracies, 3D reality conspiracies, to perhaps some sort of high scale ritual, to just on and on and on and on. But you have the two towers. If you look on the tarot, you can see the High Priestess tarot card. Mm-hmm. You see those two pillars. Freemasons use the symbol of the two pillars. These can be the pillars of Hercules or Solomon's Temple. In Kabbalah, you see the exact same thing, the pillar of mercy and severity. This is, again, the opposites, and what we're all sort of striving for is this union of opposites.
There's something in it for every viewer, isn't there?
Oh,
there's something in it for every viewer. Now, you've gone into a level of detail that I've not heard you do before. The actual... do we actually accept now that... Who's prescripting this? Who is actually prescripting this, or is there something else, some other connection that I'm not understanding?
As I said, that's an ultimate question, right? We know that we can point out these connections. What we have to, I think we're at a point where it's really important that we start to try and distinguish what is scripted, what is synchronicity, and that's I want to say I, in a weird sort of way, almost represent publicly this synchronistic community, right? By putting out these books as their editor and things like that, and going on shows like this, constantly telling people to look at their work. Mm-hmm. It's put me in a strange position because I've almost become a sort of spokesman for this community, but I hold some opinions that do not carry over. So I want to very clearly say there are a lot of people in this community who do not think it's important to make that distinction. What's scripted, what's synchronicity. They almost see that you're almost missing the point, or what's the point of really trying to break that distinction down instead of having a non-dualistic approach? Yeah, that's
exactly why I asked the question, of course, because I wanted to see if you were prepared to go as far as say it must be prescripted, but by whom? And whether it's whether it's a human being, whether it's men, or whether it's something else, we've got to leave that door firmly shut, actually, because we can't open it and see for ourselves, and maybe we never will be able to, and maybe that's the reason why we're all fascinated.
Well, I think, see, for me, I never want to shut any doors. So that's what I was saying, is I hold the opinion, which isn't necessarily the most popular opinion in the community that I research in, but I hold the opinion that we should sometimes try and make these distinctions. Mm-hmm. And, I think this is for our own benefit. I'll give you just a quick example, right? I spoke to somebody who had no idea what kind of research I did, had no anything. It was just some guy I was speaking to in a supermarket, and he starts telling me this story that he was watching some TV commercial. This guy was like in really horrible financial state, and he sees this TV commercial that he should take out this loan, this really high interest loan that will help him pay off his debts and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then that commercial ends, and the commercial starts again right afterwards. And he said, I took this as a sign from God that I should take out this loan. Now, to me, this is where I say, whoa, let's back up. Maybe it's right. Honestly, who the hell am I to say? Maybe that was the right thing for him to do at the right moment. At the same time, I think we need to use a lot of common sense. We need to use some distinction and say, do I trust a TV commercial as a sign of God, Or do I need to still use some of my common sense to say, that's probably not the best financial decision I should make? Things like that. If we can see these symbols in movies, I mean, as an artist, you have to understand, I come at this from a perspective of I am an artist. So first and foremost, I understand that a lot of times this symbolism ends up in my artwork without me intending it. When I look back at the things I wrote 10 years ago, my jaw drops to the floor because it's like, I didn't even know what these things were. How the hell did I, for lack of a better term, encode them in my stories?
Yep.
So when I see that happens, I know that it's not always intentional, that these things happen in true synchronicity, that there is something it's not cause and effect, there's something else that is speaking through us. At the same time, when you watch a movie and they show you a can of Pepsi and they keep shoving a can of Pepsi in your face, that's product placement. That's someone who decided, I want you to buy a can of Pepsi. So we have to try, at least I feel like, we need to distinguish, is the Pepsi can a sign from God, or is that someone trying to sell you something? Is that someone trying to manipulate you?
Yeah, the two sides of the coin, heads or tails, remember?
Right, and
one is the head and the other is a story.
Right, and one, to say that one is true or one is untrue, to me seems is the false reality, because yes, someone's trying to sell you a can of Pepsi, and yes, if you look at that movie, even though it's made by propagandists or marketing companies, you can find, for lack of a better term, the fingerprint of God. You can find the true story of all of reality even under that propaganda, even under that marketing and all that sort of stuff. So I always come at it that it's not this or that. They're both true, and we need to sometimes use a little of our common sense, use a little of our intuition to figure out which is which.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, actually, because over the past sort of year and a half, I agree that this is a never-ending process now, and you always want to improve upon it. And when you use the word remember earlier on, we said that, didn't we, about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Does it actually feel like you're learning this, or does it actually feel like you're sort of remembering it? Because the filter was starting to work then, wasn't it? We could filter out the rubbish, and we were saying, now that appears to be useful. And we started filing it, didn't we?
Yep.
We didn't know if we needed it all. But instead of throwing stuff away we didn't recognise and didn't like, we started a filing system.
We did.
And the real place that we live is in our heads. And once we get that head filed and sorted, and our house in order, you tend to find that your life, you manifest it in your life as well. If your head's chaotic and confused and flitting about from subject to subject and forever being distracted, not only is that happening in your head, but it happens with your friends, the life you live and the house you live in on earth, as it were. And I have noticed that does seem to be, remember is just to put back together, because dismember is to take apart. And yeah, the two sides of the coin thing, you either know it's true because your head says it is, or you listen to a tale and it may or may not be, and you'll have to decide in future. But yeah, that is how it works for me. Now, what I was trying to say, completely wandered off, was about 18 months ago, I came back to the television, and really the movies were what I was actually starting to watch again. And I'm starting to hear, in the movies and the songs, there is no doubt in my mind, on one decode, they are shouting loud and loud and louder at us. We're trying to tell you what's going on, and you're not listening.
Yeah, I believe that, and it's an excellent. I think the question. I can't even really go into it, but this is something I was literally writing and working on just before we started this interview. It's too much context to really get into, but yeah, this idea of like there's this message, and do you trust the message? Is the message a message of peace? Is it a message of war? Is it trying to control you, or is it trying to help you? We talk about the Illuminati, right? The conspiracy crowds get all worked up about the Illuminati. I mean, really, what were the Illuminati? They were a group that were trying to enlighten people. At the same time, they are human beings that are very flawed, and they realize, hey, there's some power here, and we know some things that other people don't know, and it starts to go to their head and corrupt them.
Yep.
So I think there is this sort of there's definitely a negative side. There is a political control side, and there's also a side that I incredibly sympathize with. The idea of taking down governments and religious structures, hell yeah, sign me up, man. And at the same time, the idea of manipulating people, of all this secrecy, it's a lot harder for me to get behind that sort of stuff. So there's this idea of I think I'm going to probably offend or upset a lot of people by saying this, but it's like, if you think about what is modern day Illuminati, at least in the true sense of the word, and I don't mean, a bunch of CEOs sitting at the Pentagon, twiddling their fingers trying to plot world domination.
Yeah,
if you're talking about trying to break down old structures and bring some truth to people.
We've said this before, haven't we?
Mm-hmm. It's us.
It's us, yes.
It's us.
We've said this before all the way through. I have got a picture in my lounge, and it's by a local artist, and the actual title of it is Illumination. And this picture is a fishbowl, 4/5 full with water, and inside this fishbowl is a lit candle, and behind the fishbowl is the sunshine. And I said to him, why did you paint it? And he said, because I wanted to. And I said, but this fits my decode absolutely perfectly of where we are. We're in a system that we can't really get out of. So the first thing we have to do is to make sense of the system, then understand the system, and then influence the system by influencing others. And if they like it, then that influence becomes stronger. We speak it into reality. It then becomes common knowledge. It then becomes, this is what must happen. And we only have that choice, in my opinion.
Yeah, and, I guess I love the direction this is going. I just feel the need to throw some cold water on this, or some sense of grounding. My thing is, we should always try and do both, right? So we want to head in the sky and feet on the ground. The feet on the ground answer to what we're talking about right here is that the same way that we saw those guys who might or may not, depending on your opinion of history, but regardless, the same way we can see that they were human beings and were flawed and they had great ideals and it didn't really work out, we have to remember that we're human beings and we're flawed and we have, or we at least run the same risk of making mistakes. Sometimes even when we think we're doing the best thing, or we have the best of intentions, sometimes that doesn't work out exactly right. So, again, not trying to completely throw these ideas out. I just do want to put that on there, though, right? Is to say it's
okay
always healthy
that.
to remember that we need to check ourselves. So keep going, and try and do this, and every now and then take a step back and go, Am I still doing the right thing? Am I still me? And can I look myself in the mirror and feel really good about myself?
Yeah, I'm nodding my head all the time because you're saying the things that we do. Every Tuesday, don't we? We have a chat to ourselves. Shall we do it? Is it helping? Why are we doing it? And we always come to the same conclusion, don't we?
We do.
Do we want a massive number of subscribers?
No.
No. Would we like some feedback that would let us know if we're actually getting our point across and does it have any value?
Yeah.
We'd love that, wouldn't we?
We do, yeah.
Would we actually want 10,000 subscribers and the pressure of producing the show because all of a sudden they'll become the show?
We'll be dancing to their tune.
Yeah.
And that ain't what we want.
We do. We actually just share the word decode. We try and share the positivity of the one thing that's missing out of society, and it sounds... The one thing that's missing is the actual value of love, really. Learning the overall value of everything and putting it in an order that doesn't have money at the top. That for me, that's what's missing, really. What did I watch just recently? I think I watched something called The Happening. And the film itself was neither here nor there. But the couple that actually survived because they actually loved each other. The ones that died, they didn't love each other.
Care, no.
They were living in the Matrix and doing what the Matrix wants you to do, which is the ever-spinning wheel called revolution, which we keep asking for. I'm not quite sure why, because the revolution's got to be in your own head first. But and I watched the film, and the only survivors were the ones that truly loved each other. And the message never came out in any other way in the film. You had to work that out for yourself. Why have they survived? It never told you why they survived. And I loved the film because of that.
And I think this is the kind of thing where, when we talk about media manipulation or the idea of them kind of shouting at you, hey, we're trying to tell you something, whichever way you want to go with that. Like, there's all these conspiracy sites that say the movie Metropolis is some sort of, techno-organic Orwellian future that's trying to get you to merge with machines and lose your humanity.
We speak the same language, but we don't understand each other. That was the message in that, wasn't it? But
I was like, wait, that's not what I got out of it at all.
Yeah,
it says there that you have to balance your head and your heart and your hands and find this common ground. And I'm like, wait a second, this is a beautiful message.
It was beautiful,
What the hell are you people talking about?
You've got to put your heart into it. Yeah, I've seen it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
The idea of love is going to conquer death, is going to conquer everything. That's a beautiful message. Now, at the same time, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Frank Zappa.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Frank Zappa, during the 80s, there was this thing called the PNRC hearings. Basically, they wanted to put warning labels on music and all this sort of stuff. And Frank Zappa was very outspoken against the censorship of this music. And one of the things that he talks about, the criticism was, but this music has all this negative messages in it, and et cetera, and it's going to influence people. It's going to cause people to commit crimes or commit suicide or do all these things. And he said, if really everyone listened to what media said to them, he's like, 90% of the songs out there say love one another. He's like, how well is that working out for us? Like, if we're really being brainwashed by our media, we would all be loving and hugging and, we'd be the happiest unwarlike people. And yet we don't mind dancing to the song that says, oh, love, 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 and then we go home and we're still, dirtbags.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I agree. I think we're living in a horror movie for me, and we are starting to vote our horror movies to the top of the charts nowadays. And we don't seem entirely concerned about it at all, do we?
No.
We're having our kids doing shoot-'em-up movies and games, and you listen to conversations and you think every conversation, you listen carefully, and it's about character assassination. Even in conversation, we're assassinating character after character after character, and the movies are just playing that out. They're just playing that out for us. Now, I'm not saying the movies are telling us the truth. I don't ever claim to have hold of that. It's a slippery customer if you ever know you've got it. But what I'm saying about the movies is that the system decode that we're all sharing is in the movies. Now, are we learning to decode the control system that was at one time slightly above us, the floor or two above us? And I do explain the word floor is spelled F-L-A-W. Are we learning the control system just a little higher up? Is it the truth? Well, we don't know, but it's their control system that allows them to look down on us.
Excellent question. I mean, honestly, this is something I don't think anyone can really say one way or the other. We're still trying to figure this out. And, this idea of, is there, when we talk about media, obviously we can say that there are these valuable lessons for us in there. And you said, does a movie, let's say, hold the truth? Well, I'm arguing, and this is, again, you have to be really careful. I don't know what word I can use on your radio show, but you need a good BS detector, if you know what I mean. Like, you need a good detector of untruth and lies.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you can find it in anything. If you look at a hologram or a fractal, you look at, as I'm saying, when you look at a plant and you see that Fibonacci sequence breaks itself down throughout the plant, no matter how small you go, no matter how inane you go, you're going to find it. So the truth is that you can find the quote-unquote truth in a movie. You can find the truth out in the forest amongst the trees. You can find the truth on the side of the highway in a gutter. You can find the truth in this conversation. You can even find the truth at, some marketing firm or some whole of government. The question, of course, is how much harder does it get to sift through the BS before you find that truth? But I do feel that truth or this template is all pervasive. So no matter what we look at, going to the supermarket, you're going to see it on the shelves. Going to the restroom and having a cup of coffee in the morning, you're going to see it. Every little thing, as small as it seems, does seem to echo this larger image. The real question, though, is just that when we say who's scripting it for what purpose, we start getting into metaphysical questions that, everyone has really strong personal opinions about one way or the other. And I don't know that we're ever going to all agree on that. This is why I really come down on the side of let's realize these are all a bunch of different reality tunnels. Everyone has their own perspective.
Yep.
And when it comes time to answer that ultimate question, everyone's going to have a slightly different answer. So let's listen to all the different answers, see maybe some work for you, some don't.
Yep.
And that's it. That's all you can do.
It is. I come to the same conclusion. I've been coming to the same one now for months. Do the people at the top really know what they're doing? And should we actually admire the genius? Or have they no idea, and this is a chaos control system that could end in tears for everybody?
It sure seems that way.
And I don't have the answer, because, as usual, when you've got two choices, it can often lie somewhere between the two.
Right.
So, it's but it is a wonderful life. I do like it. I don't like it because it's all good. I like it because I can see both sides. I can feel the pain, I can feel the joy. The one thing that I have learnt is that empathy is what matters here, isn't it? And you see people don't have it. I mean, we live in a world of makers and takers, don't we? And you and I qualify for the makers team, don't we?
Yep.
And they
try
and invent as many ways as possible to take it off us and make us say thank you for the privilege. And it's the eternal fight. Here in the UK, we don't have the level of oppression that I think America is now going into. And I'd love you to talk about how you see the future, perhaps both sides of the Atlantic. We get a lot of American news, and the media appears to be pretty much telling it how it is. This authoritarian system is coming into being. We've always had it over here, but we don't have guns. So we don't have the same level of threat and oppression, do we?
No.
We don't have guns. We can't even carry the smallest penknife in our pocket. We've got to the point in this country where we have... They're not police at all, but they're dressed like police. I mean, we actually call them G-Force, or Homeland Security is what you and I call them. And these people have the power to stop us, search our pockets and ask us questions in everybody else's mind. They have no more power than you or I, really. No. But here in this country, we're very domesticated. And I'm looking to the future now, and I'm getting towards the part of the interview where here we are, and what do we see in the future now? And I certainly have something to add to that when you're ready.
I mean, I think you made the most important part of what you said, is they really have no more power than anyone else except for in the minds. If you can convince people, hey, I have the right to stop you, basically, what is taxation, right? I have the right to steal your money. If a thief on the street did it, everyone goes, that's a crime. If you convince everyone that it's okay, it's for the benefit of the state or something, whatever excuse you want to say, then it becomes acceptable and everyone goes, oh, of course they can do that. And even if people don't like it, they still go, what are you going to do? Right? That's how it is. They have that authority. And ultimately, this is all, when we talk about reality tunnels or things of perception, we have to really, if we want to make some sort of change, we have to start changing people's perceptions and saying, hey, wake the hell up. They do not have that authority over you. They are not any more special. They are not anything. And at the same time, it's going to be a huge challenge because they do have a ton of guns. They do have a ton of power. They, if they have access to the media, they have access to shipping lanes. They have access to everything that we, in a lot of ways, don't have that access to. But, this is... I'm not trying to give you some sort of manifesto here, but I think this is certainly the direction we would need to go in if we're going to start shifting things, is to realize there's a hell of a lot more of us, and maybe even to accept when we say this idea of is it this or that, is to start trying to convince some of those guys, hey, you are us. The guy who's wearing, the SWAT team stormtrooper uniform, he's not a member of the Clone Wars, Star Wars, genetically bred super soldier yet. He's just a regular guy like you and me who decided, hey, this is a job where I can make some money and feed my kids.
It's just a costume drama.
It's just, yeah, exactly.
That's what it really is. It's a costume drama. And we've said it before, and I'll say it again when I remember to say it, is go and buy the same costume yourself. That'll fox them, won't it? You say, well, why are you dressed like me? Well, why are you dressed like me? Say, well, I'm in this gang. Well, I'm in this gang. We can be friends because we're both on the same side, aren't we? I just thought I'd dress like you to show that I'm the same as you, really, and I don't want to fight you. Did you want to fight me? And why was that again? I realise this is the eternal battle. I realise that, but there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. That's what we say, isn't there? We don't really want to be swinging our feet doing. We actually quite enjoy doing this.
We enjoy doing this, yeah.
And we don't overload
sharing,
and we don't. Well, exactly. It's all maths, isn't it? We've done this before as well. If we all bring something and take away something of value, we've shared, and that should multiply what matters, because it's all maths. It is maths at the end of it, and that's just to share. It's to come up with a solution, find out what has value, add it, subtract it, multiply it, and share it.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry about that one.
It's a great rant.
Can I ask, Alan?
Go ahead.
Just did you come into this looking for a solution?
I don't think, not at first. There have been moments where I did certainly seek out an ultimate answer. I think, years ago I just wrote, the same way you said that the guy painted that painting because he wanted to. Yep. Years ago I just wrote stories because I enjoyed telling stories. And then, I grew up, born and raised in New York City, so 9/11 happened and it really kind of screwed with me. And I started asking a lot of questions. Within a few years it was like, this is getting absurd. There was men with machine guns on the subway. And I'm like, this is just absolutely absurd. What's going on here? So I started asking a lot of questions, and I think at that point I was looking for a truth of like, who did this? What's going on? What is the end game? And all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then the more I dug into what is the truth, the more I started to realize that that truth isn't so clear cut, and then we start getting to these really gray areas, and that they were not to say better, but like there were bigger questions to ask. It's like you could say, who did it? Who committed this crime? And, I have some answers for that I think work for me, and there are certain truths that I, to a certain extent, accept within that, how that power structure works. But then it took me to this next level of trying to figure out, well, what the hell is really going on? What is reality? What is synchronicity? What are all these things? And again, I've come to some answers where I feel like I've found some quote-unquote truth, but I think really the biggest part of that truth is realizing that there isn't one truth. There isn't, sort of in looking for it, I realized this was it. Yeah.
We're sort of the wise guys, aren't we? But not the wise guys in that we think we're wiser than everybody else, but we're the why is guys. We're asking why is it? We're the guys that are asking why is it? And the reason I asked you why you were, if you were looking for a solution, it's because me personally, I've always looking for a solution, but looking to others for the solution, and this dependency, this looking for the parent, and they're all telling us that they want to be transparent. And when I wrote down solution, I look at a solution as it's been dissolved. And that's how you get a solution. You have to dissolve something. Well, if you're dissolving something, you're breaking it down into smaller component parts. And that's partly looking for a solution. But the word then, solution, has got the word soul in it, and it's got, if you break it down, soul, you shun. So are you shunning your own soul by looking for other solutions?
It's your light, isn't it? It's your light coming.
Yeah.
Shun, I-O-N, is come.
Yes.
Soul is light. It's find your own light.
But yeah, exactly that. But the other word shun as well is to push something away.
Well, we do that in discuss shuns, don't we?
Yeah.
We diss and we cuss and we shun and we call it talking. It doesn't make sense.
No.
But it does. Because everyone says that's what we say.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, discussion goes with percussion. Well, percussion is to strike.
To strike, yeah.
And we know concussion is to have been struck. So what's discussion? It must be striking. It must be.
Yeah, yeah. But and striking the right note. Does it strike the right note within you? And it seems to have done with yourself. And we all need a catalyst to set you on this journey looking for solutions. And your catalyst was the 9/11, and I remember 9/11, and I remember exactly where I was when it happened. And they say that about Kennedy. The people that when Kennedy was assassinated, you'll know where they can remember where they were when they first heard it. And
we got the Princess Di thing as well, haven't we?
Princess Diana as well. Yeah. But and then I wrote down under solution. I've wrote down solve, and solve. When you look at it. And you look at it quickly. To me, it looks like love. So love your own problems, and embrace your problems that you've got, and solve your own problems first. And if you can solve your own problems without anybody else's help, and you may need a little bit of help along the way, which you give us, and other speakers and authors and artists like yourself.
But we try and share. When we have interviews, we try and give something back.
Exactly. That's why we decided we wanted to do this.
Yeah, that's why we asked Alan back, because he was one of my we sort of felt we connected.
Yeah.
You know, from look at all the happy creatures and the animal kingdom and the story that he wrote in that book.
Yeah, yeah.
There's much online about that. We don't need to recover that.
No.
Although we are in recovery, aren't we? Yeah. Because, I mean, have we not actually, in this waking up process, and if you don't feel like you've died, you haven't really been to the wake, have you?
No.
Because it's your own funeral you have to go to. And once you've been to a funeral, and you've nearly died, you need to go back into recovery. And you need to be patient, don't you? Because this recovery takes a long time to make you better.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's what we've got to learn. We're in recovery. We're going back. We're going round again to learn what we missed.
Yeah.
And we keep going round and round and round until we've got the cycle sorted.
Yeah.
Because this is circulation. Yeah, this is the magic roundabout. This is the world.
It is.
This is the world that twirls.
And the doctrine.
And the
I
words.
want to throw you guys two quick ideas. One, when you were talking about the idea of solving something, if you look, there's an alchemical idea of solve and coagula. So it's pronounced solve, but it's spelled the same way as solve.
Yes.
This basically means to take apart and put back together. This completely goes with your idea of solution or dissolution, all this sort of stuff. That we're talking about.
And Sally Salt.
There is even on older versions of the Devil Tarot card where he has Salve written on one arm and Coagula written on the other, and this kind of goes back to our idea of the two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And then there's the idea of like recover, going back in these circles, and I do think that, you know, we sometimes think of going in circles as being trapped. We're like a hamster stuck on the wheel. And sometimes it is important, though, to go back when you think you've figured something out, to go back, recover that ground, double-check yourself, revisit, remember what... You know, this, again, is all about remembering.
Yeah,
and there's two very big differences. There's something that is known as a maze, and there's something that's known as a labyrinth. And they are two different things. And one of the books I put out a year or so ago was written by this gentleman named Douglas Bowles. He wrote a book called Winter's Labyrinth, because when he was really kind of breaking this down, he realized, well, there's a maze, which is you're trying to get out of it. You're trying not to get trapped in it. It's there to confuse you and keep you stuck, and you're trying to find a way out. But a labyrinth, in the true sense of the word, is actually something that has only one way in and one way out. And it's this course that you go in, you cycle your way through, and then you exit back out. And it's sort of like a meditative process. Go through all the nooks and crannies, retrace your steps, go back through it, remember where your center point is, remember who you are at the center, and then step back out into the world having remembered that. And I feel like this is vitally important when we talk about recovering, remembering, retracing our steps. There is a value to being on this wheel if we take the lessons from it. If we just get stuck and aren't paying attention, then we might as well be trapped on a merry-go-round. But if we actually are paying attention, we can remember what it was that we missed the first time around.
Ever decreasing circles would be a drill, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, ever decreasing circles. We want ever increasing circles, don't we? I mean, didn't the ripples on the pond actually they got bigger and bigger?
They did,
Once
yeah.
you throw the stone in, the ripples get bigger, not smaller. I mean, this is Waterworld, this is Oceania that we live in the finance sense of the word. When we discuss finances, it's all about the water, isn't it?
Oh yeah, sure. The currency.
Yeah, the liquidity and the cash flow and that sort of thing. And the duality on that floor and that floor alone is the SEE versus the SEA, isn't it? That's the two dualities that the money system works, because it's the laws of the sea that we're actually following now. Everybody's been following that for at least 300 years in this country, and probably a lot longer.
Yeah.
But coming back to solutions, I mean, we have got to where we always get to on our shows, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's us.
It is.
We're the problem, so therefore we can be the solution.
We should be.
And it's not the 1%. I actually have got to the point of saying that 1%, they figured out how to row together. And here in this country, our two top universities, Cambridge and Oxford, they have an annual boat race. And I'm sure this is just a symbolic boat race of work together, row together, whereas we're taught to row and fall apart. You know, there's row and row. And we have the word oar. And they move their oars together, and we use it in our language to change direction. They're all going the same way, and we use oar to disagree and go round and round in circles, because we've only got one oar. We don't use a number of oars, do we?
No.
We only use one oar. The language is absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's helped me understand a great deal more than I would have done without it.
Yeah.
And with people like yourself helping, we can leave the information behind to make a difference. I actually think that we're going to have to go a long way down, and not everybody's going to make it. But that's the way this game has always gone. If you don't know your history, you might as well have been born yesterday. We have to accept that this is part of a bigger cycle. Save yourself, save your friends, save your sanity, keep your house clean, inside your head that is, and don't live your life in virtual reality, because that's what this internet is. It's the good and the bad. It's good for what we use it for. But if you live in it, you're not living, are you? Because it's not the real world. It doesn't connect to the outside world in the way we think it does. Government can't hear it.
No.
They can't hear us. It's our own little playground with our own little monitor watching us. And don't get caught out playing too long. Our hour has absolutely flown by.
Alan.
Absolutely flown by. Tell us what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about... you said you're working on your... was it another book that you've got coming out soon?
Sure, yeah. I was talking the book Suicide Kings. That's the book that's about Bin Laden, JFK, 9/11. Just really kind of going into more of these concepts. What does it really mean when you say we have to die before we can learn something? This is something you mentioned a few times throughout the episode, and that's something to me is a really central concept. You know, this idea of ego death. But I don't want to leave it there because, you know, we get into this idea of ego death, kill the ego, you need to die. Well, that's only the first step. You know, the ego has a function. We need to bring it back. We need to learn how to, you know, we don't want to be a suicide pact, but we want to, but we do have to travel through this dark night of the soul. So I'm trying to make the distinction between these things. And what I'm basically trying to show is that some of these political assassinations or some of these world events, they seem to be a sloppy manifestation of the things we almost know inherently. We know that we need to do them. When you said we kind of need to die, we kind of need to have a death of the self before we can discover the self. Well, we know this, but we end up, like I said, I think on some subconscious or inherent instinctual level we understand this, but since we don't fully understand it, we act it out in all these violent ways where people oppress each other, people kill each other, people do all these horrible things because they're trying to act out this sacred narrative that they don't fully understand what it's a metaphor of. So I'm really trying to show how these things manifest on all the different floors of that building, all the different stories that are going on at the same time, both on the psychological level, the archetypal level, the 3D physical level, etc., 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 all the way down into the basement and all the way up to the roof, trying to show how these things play out on multiple stories at the same time, and then try and figure out what can we learn from that. How do we cover enough of those circles that we can figure out maybe to get off the ride or stop repeating ourselves. You know, there's the old idea of if you keep trying to find the same solutions to the same problems, that's the definition of being a psychopath. You know, so if we realize that throughout history we've been doing the same things over and over again, which I think are unconscious ways of trying to do these grand spiritual things, once we realize that, maybe we can start taking other approaches to solving these problems rather than in getting stuck in our psychopathic cycles.
Absolutely agree entirely. We're nodding away to ourselves. And we're right. We don't yet know the answer, but we now know that we don't know.
We do.
We now know that we don't know. We haven't got all the tools we need.
We know the answer to.
You know, we've got the present, haven't it? We've actually got the present. We figured out what the present is, and it's been a gift.
It's been a gift
because the gift is a present. And God bless, we get a new one every day, don't we?
We do.
So unwrap it and work it out what it is. And we love having these conversations. We love different perspectives. You give us different avenues to explore. Suicide Kings, out in July, would that be correct?
Oh, probably closer to November.
November it is.
Yeah.
Will you come back and talk to us when you've got it out?
Absolutely, you got it. Anytime, you guys just give me a ring. It's a pleasure speaking to you both.
You as well, Alan.
allthehappycreatures.com. We'll pass out more details in just a moment. Thanks,
and
Alan.
Please visit thesyncbook.com as well.
Thank you to Mr. Alan Abbadessa Green.
Thank you, Alan.
What a top guy.
He certainly is.
Absolutely. That gave us a little bit more to think about, didn't it?
He knows his stuff.
Well, you and I sit here in the middle of North Yorkshire trying to work out reality. Yeah. And then that gentleman there gives us a whole lot more to look into.
Yeah.
Deeper and deeper and deeper we go, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, you listen to us live on Blog Talk if you listen to us at all right now. Otherwise, you're getting the YouTube video tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, which I'm editing for the first time, so please, I'll make allowances for my edits. But we're also going to the Bilderberger, aren't we? We're going to the Bilderberger's meeting on Saturday.
We are, yes.
On the 8th, on Saturday.
6th, is it the 6th?
The 8th? It might be the 8th, I think.
Yes, it is.
Pretty sure it's the 8th, yeah.
6th to the 9th, isn't it?
Yeah, not quite sure exactly what's going on down there. Some people are saying they're going to turn it into a festival and that sort of thing, and we're going to be diverted off to meet with like-minded people at what would be a festival event.
Yeah, if you're going,
be all right.
It would. If you're going, let us know. Put a note on Facebook or
it'd be
go
nice
on the
to
YouTube
put
channel.
some faces to names, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
we're actually going down there to see if we can find some names that we've heard of.
Yeah,
put the faces to them and see who they are.
Yeah,
see who they are, because my feeling is that we actually meet a lot of people who are trying to do the right thing. They think they are.
Yeah,
and we're not here to argue if they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. But one thing I do stick by is, if you're arguing with people, you're not perhaps doing it the right way. Because you're not going to win an argument. You can only win by getting the respect that avoids an argument. Going down to the Bilderberg meeting, how many do you think's going to be there? Come on, let's take a guess live while we're on the show.
I'm going to guess at 200.
Well, I hope there's a few more than that, but
I'm going to guess.
Let's have a look, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to go down
but
and
we're
see
going to be
anyway.
there, we're going to introduce ourselves and see who we meet, aren't we?
I hope I'm pleasantly surprised.
And I hope that people who are aware of it... This is an event where we can show our numbers.
Yeah.
That's why we're going, isn't it? Because we want to be counted in that number. We want to be in that number.
Yeah.
It's a long way from home. What do we think we're going to get out of it? Well, it doesn't matter what we're going to get out of it. We're going to get knowing that there's other people.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're meant to be doing? Aren't we meant to be? I mean, the counterfeit reality in this box here, you can't see them.
No, you can't judge it by that.
No, you can't.
We don't know whether that's real or not. We've seen it. We can see it in pictures and in words. And but is it real? We've asked ourselves.
Well, look at the interview we've just done.
Look
at the interview we've just done.
Yeah.
Round and round that subject we went. Are we just treading an already previously well-trodden path of fascination? Is it just the fascination that they give us, that occupies our time, and allows them to get on with business. Is there something more above the top of the pyramid? We've asked that question, we can't answer it. Is there an intelligence above what? We don't know.
No.
But we do admire its genius.
Yeah,
We do admire its genius.
Yeah, and if and opening yourself up to it as well. That you have to open yourself up to the channels, don't you? That it revolves in. And if you are arguing about, as he said, if you're arguing with people about it, you're not opening yourself up to the channels, because you're trying to get to the higher ground and say, I know more than you do. No.
Well, that's Facebook.
And that's
Facebook. I mean, that's all over Facebook, isn't it?
Yeah.
All over. The comments, I mean, the snidey little comments. You know, well, that could be right, but this seems more right. Well, I like what you say, but I don't agree with that sort of thing. And you think, oh, give it up, man. These people, all right, the people, just like me and you, there's many of us, we do it for nothing. We do it because we do it on Tuesdays anyway.
We do it.
We do this on a Tuesday anyway, so we might as well stick it on the internet, and if nothing else, it's a record of who we were, what we did, and how we tried when we're gone.
Yeah.
Because I ain't sure there's an age limit on this, but I do think the older you get, the more you can look back and decode. The younger you are, you're busy looking forwards.
Yes, you are.
You've passed the centre of the seesaw. You're not seeing anymore. Now you're saying what you've seen. You're
on the path more travelled.
Yeah, but you see and you go past the middle bit.
Yeah.
And now you're on to saw.
Yeah.
You see, future, past. So we do have something to share. And we try it every single week.
We do.
Thank you for your company. The contacts for Alan's two websites, The Sync Book and All the Happy Creatures. You're on our Facebook, and we do say to people, if you are listening to us, and that's all you're doing, come on, take the next step.
Yeah, come on.
Take the next step and make contact.
If you'd like to have a chat with us, by all means do.
Well, we can do a complete show on people calling in and saying hello.
Yeah.
There's no script that we need to follow. We just like to make friends with people who like to hear what we've got to say and return the compliment by bringing us something that we might like to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah.
And don't think we won't, because we will. We won't butt in. We'll just listen carefully, see what you've got to say, and if it fits in with where we're going, thanks very much.
Yep.
And if it doesn't fit in with where we're going,
we'll still
thanks
say,
very much.
We'll still say thanks very much.
That's the way this should work, does work, and could work. Do we have to agree on everything? That would be silly.
It would.
That would be silly. Yeah. That wouldn't make sense at all.
No, I've got past the 51 telling the 49 what to do. I've got past that. And we said it in that interview there with Alan. It's you.
Yeah.
It's about you and your decode.
Yeah.
And you can't impose your decode on somebody else. You can share it with them, and they may get something from it and take it away.
Well, listen to the interview again. You'll hear that I'm trying to share my code, and Alan, but Alan's the guest, so he's sharing his decode too.
Yeah, of course.
And we weren't that far away.
No.
But we're actually 3,000 miles away. He's in New York, and we're sat here in North Yorkshire.
Yeah.
But we're close. We're sat here trying to put into words what it is that we feel and we see and we experience. Is there something more in this universe that can't be explained? Well, I don't know. But I accept there could be.
There could be.
There could be, yeah. I'm not that blind that there's a feeling to all this, isn't there? There's your 5 regular senses. The return of common sense and logic. Then there's a feeling. It's not quite a knowing. I don't claim to have the knowing, but I know it exists. But there's a feeling. And I actually think that when you're doing the right things, the universe gives you a little push in the back. It gives you a little push and says, go on.
Go on, it feels right.
Go on then. Try it. Go on. All right, Mr. Talk a lot. Go on, give it a go.
And if it feels wrong, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, but either way. Either way. You learn one way or another.
Yeah.
We don't learn by sitting in the sunshine and sipping cocktails. That's not the way it works. That's when you've retired. You're really tired. We aren't sick of going round and round it, are we?
No.
We're okay with the revolution. Let the revolution continue. Because the revolution is in our heads.
But shouldn't be retired. You've got a new set of tyres, you're off again.
But that's the yin and the yang, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're on about the pit stop,
Yes.
but we're on about the end of the race.
Yeah.
Both is correct.
Hopefully.
Both is correct. Until next week, we'll be here,
Yep.
and we'll be at Bilderberg the weekend after.
We will. Hope to see you there.
Please try and make sure that you do try and find time to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is our chance to show numbers, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is our chance to find out who's real. Now, I know there are many people who will come up with excuses for not going. They'll always do that.
They will.
Let's see who's there.
Okay.
Till next week, good night, everybody, and thank you.
Good night.